Hello everyone, I'm putting this up here just to show YouTube that I am operating within the guidelines of fair use, which allows to use segments of material I do not own the rights for in order to criticize and express an opinion. Just as any democratic, free speech supporting platform would do. I'm not going to make any money out of this, and everything I upload here will be for the sole purpose of reviewing, critique, and expressing opinions about what's going on and what went on. So a few of you probably have noticed that there are some alarming issues that we need to talk about in the last videos. I was trying to sort of stay away from making videos because I don't want to add any discomfort or any kind of negative feelings to what they are already going through. This family is going through a lot. I feel extremely sad for Esther. I really, really hope that she makes it and that she makes a full recovery. But as we see, things are happening that are not right, and we need to talk about them.
You're gonna be hurting for the remainder of your life, so yeah.
The rest of my life?
Oh, yeah, life is pain.
Who the hell in their right mind would say something like that to a 7-year-old? A child that has just turned 7. Who? What sane person? What responsible parent would throw that at their kid as a fact of life? This is just outrageous. It's unbelievable, and I believe the time has come for an intervention in this family. So this is not the first time that this has happened, of course. Raphael was told very bluntly that if he goes to school, he will get bullied because children will bully him at school. And that's it. That was a sort of a fact told to him. I have a video about this. But let's not talk about Raphael. Let's talk about Abigail. And why? Because Abigail is not just a regular 7-year-old child. You have to remember that this child is detached from reality. She was never allowed to go out or to take one step in the world without her mother and father hovering over her for 7 straight years. She has never been to kindergarten. She has never been to daycare. She has never been to school. She has never played with girlfriends. She has never had girlfriends to play with, to come to a party. She has never been to a friend's birthday party, and no friends have ever been to her birthday party. So this is a child that has been isolated her entire life. She is being taught by a system they call homeschooling. A girl who has so few opportunities to even talk to other little children is held at home and taught by a teacher via a cell phone? A cell phone. Look it up. Abigail has been shown to be, at least in my opinion, slower than the average child her age. She has more difficulties understanding commands, understanding instructions. She did learn how to read, but she doesn't always understand what she read. And there are sections of her talking and just making absolutely no sense. Whole videos where Abigail says sentences that amount to nothing. And I'm not blaming this child. It is definitely due to the circumstances she has been growing up under. The intense lack of stimuli, the almost non-existent social situations, her difficulties should have been treated by professional educational figures, which she has been deprived of her entire life. In Israel, she got recommendations from doctors. That was back when she was 2 or 3 years old, I think 2 years old, what treatments she needs to better her situation. Even back then, she did not get any of these treatments. So her background and her history, combined with what she's learning now about herself, this is, in my very personal opinion, not a fact, bordering on emotional abuse. And let me remind you of one more thing. We have never seen a diagnosis of Abigail suffering from EDS. Never once have we seen this diagnosis. She was also diagnosed by her mother as autistic. I have videos about that as well. Never once have we seen her visit any place that diagnosed her as autistic. And this is even worse because she is getting these messages into her head of what. So, how long has this obsession with EDS been going on, actually? Well, I'm going to show you a part of a video that was taken when Abigail was 2 years old. She's now 7, so at least 5 years. In that video, we can see that Abigail, she is a very clumsy walker and she does tend to fall and trip a lot. But so does my mom, and she doesn't have EDS, But anyway, the child was diagnosed by a bunch of doctors. Andrea was trying to get her diagnosed as suffering from autism. The doctors refused to give that diagnosis, but they did say she has some issues, and a few of them had to do with her coordination and walking, etc. And again, as I said before, she was recommended to get some therapy for that. Andrea, when she came out of the office, she said definitely she's going to get the therapy, but reality is they left to America and Abigail did not get this therapy ever. So this child has been exposed to this idea that she has this horrible disease that will affect her entire life since a very young age. And as we saw in the video, very straightforward.
Abigail fell 4 times. 4 times, like less than a block away. And she was falling all through the store. She was having a really hard time walking. So it's really, like, I don't want her to have that life with EDS.
So this was 5 years ago. As we can see, Andrea makes sure to report this EDS issue again and again when it comes to Abigail. Now let's be honest here. None of us have ever seen Abigail actually being diagnosed with EDS. So no diagnosis so far, not for autism, nor for EDS. So that's one thing. The other thing is that even if she will be diagnosed one day with EDS, it doesn't mean that her life is going to be hell. And certainly it is not right to expose her to such an idea with such conviction and to plant this sort of fact and belief in her mind that she is going to suffer pain her whole life. Definitely not when she's 7 years old. Definitely not when her whole reality is you, her mother. That's it. That's her reality. There's nothing out there to compete with that. Now, one of the things that is recommended, a few things are recommended to take care of EDS, and one of them is movement, to be in motion, to be active. Now, usually children that age are very active. They run around with their friends at school. They've been running around and playing and climbing and falling and messing around for years now because they've been to kindergarten and they've been with other children. They've been to parks and playgrounds together. They've been to parties together. Maybe they're in the Scouts. I don't know, Cub Scouts, whatever. But Abigail has a very low probability of being active because she's home all day. She's home all day. She's practically passive completely. And if we think of it even further, she also, Andrea informs us in this video that Abigail has very severe lack of vitamin D. In Florida, that is a house with a yard outside. She's not getting enough sun to have a sufficient amount of vitamin D in her blood. This is a 7-year-old. Come on. So, as we see, there is a pattern here. And the pattern is that for the last 5 years, at least since the age of 2, Abigail has been sort of diagnosed by her mother as having EDS. But we haven't seen, for these 7 years, we haven't seen her once actually being diagnosed with EDS. Not once. That's one thing. The other thing is that Abigail has been isolated. And when I say isolated, I mean to a point where she has no option to be an active, normal, social child, regardless of her other difficulties. So, no matter how bad a situation is, you never come up to a child and repeatedly brainwash them into sickness. This is wrong. And I feel, my feeling alone, is that this is what has been going on. And still going on.
She is my only child that has ever had problems like that. Like you'll see her fall repeatedly just walking. She falls over.
That's true. Abigail falls over a lot. But I would also recommend checking her eyesight because she tends to shut one eye in videos. You can see that repeatedly, and somehow no one is paying attention to that and no one is taking care of that. But let's say again, you say here, Andrea, that Abigail is the only child that has this problem. Yet, listen to what you say to Raphael here in this last video.
Red down disease?
It's an EDS thing.
Family disease?
Yes, it's genetic.
EDS is the stretchy bones?
Yes, that's why I keep telling you guys, don't hurt yourself.
Can I do this without hurting myself?
Yeah, but it's not really good for you.
Also, Raphael is not allowed, or it's not recommended for him to sit in that way that he always sits, and he's fine with it and has no problem with it. So, again, you open an umbrella, you call that umbrella the EDS umbrella, and you start tucking everyone under that umbrella. Regardless if they had been diagnosed, if a doctor actually saw them, if they had had any kind of genetic testing to show that. There's a bunch of videos on this channel about genetic testing, You go in there and you never get a true result. Never. When Andrea was diagnosed with EDS, then she actually took a test. These are not blood tests. It's sort of like answering questions, like a questionnaire. And according to this questionnaire, she did have EDS, but I haven't seen or I haven't found anything that had to do with actual blood tests. However, that really doesn't matter because even if she does have EDS, the children should not be part of this, okay? They should not be hearing about all the pains and the fragility and how weak their bones are and their muscles are and their connective tissue is, etc. They're children, they're kids. Just let them live their lives. Let them have friends and go out and enjoy and play. And if they break a leg like Abigail did, and by the way, her leg is fine today, and if they break an arm, that's, it happens. They're not going to die from it. Just let them live their lives. Because now, this conversation, by the way, continued. And Raphael was told that he should not do certain movements and he should be very careful for not hurting himself in any way, and he should not sit like that. And what does this have to do with him? You said yourself just a few years ago that Abigail is the only child of yours that has these symptoms of falling down and being unstable, etc. Raphael never had those symptoms, right? So why are you including him in this and controlling even more of his behaviors? The way he sits, what he does. He's afraid of everything anyway. He's been scared into just about everything. So he avoids. He's so easy to control, isn't he? And I find that so sad. And all this is going on while Esther is in such horrible condition, and your heart just breaks for these kids. They have to deal with their grandmother that is suddenly disappeared from their lives, and they have to go visit her and see her in situations that are very difficult to see someone you love. And it's stressful, it's depressing, it's heart-wrenching. You can't really operate like you would on an everyday level. It's very difficult to have a parent in such a condition. Very. And I really feel for Andrea for having to go through this. But the kids, they have to deal with this, and then they have to see their grandmother in this condition and be afraid of that happening to them. It's just, they're too young for this. They shouldn't be exposed to all these neurotic fears. And in regard to them being careful all the time, how much more careful can they get? Really? They are cocooned. They're isolated. How much more overprotected can they be? To a point of what? So I think this needs to be said. And having said all that, I do support the family, and I do support Andrea in trying to get through these hard times. But I can't be okay with what the kids are being told about themselves, about life, about their bodies. This is not right. It's not sound.